Good morning, everyone. I hope you woke up and got your Starbucks coffee today because they came out with their earnings. And although initially looked kind of blah, the stock's trading up. So maybe you all did rush out and grab that Starbucks coffee. Other topics we're going to cover today is I'm going to say another proposed merger between Sprint and Spirit Airlines and Frontier, like Spirit's in bankruptcy, and I guess Frontier is going to try to get them on the steal on a low deal, which is not a bad idea. And then Corey's going to talk about a stock that's been very interesting, ASML. And if you know what that stands for, you are already in the upper level of semiconductor knowledge, ASML. But I will tell you what it stands for because I had to look it up myself. Before we get started, I must remind you this is a financial education presentation. You must do your own due diligence on anything heard in this presentation. More disclaimer information can be found on ankerstarwealth.com, and the opinions expressed are mine and Corey's alone. So, Starbucks, before I show the earnings, when I think of things that are, I've got my I got my thumb on the pulse of the consumer of the United States. I always think Starbucks. Little bit, a little bit of a discretionary purchase, but I don't think people treat Starbucks like discretionary, even though I really do believe it is. Amazon, Walmart, Starbucks. If those three are doing well, the consumer is doing well, is my theory, my belief, because so much spend goes through those. Throw in McDonald's too, whether you eat at McDonald's or not. So Starbucks, let me share my screen. Oh, Corey eats at McDonald's, but hey, do you go to Starbucks?
I do not. My wife does. My wife takes care of that for us.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say,
We got it covered.
you got it covered.
Yep.
Well, I can say I'm not a big coffee drinker, not much of a coffee drinker at all, but I have taken my daughters through Starbucks many a time. And I have to say, when I go through these earnings and some of the news that comes out of it, I see the same trend in my family. The last couple of years, 2 years ago, I felt like I was in that Starbucks line 2 times, 3 times a week. Never for me, just for my kids. And now, guess what? I don't sit in that line as much. Maybe it's because one of my daughters got her driver's license and she just goes through without me. And so now I pay it in the car insurance. But, so quick highlight, Starbucks, their same store sales went down as far as total volume. Their visits went down, but the prices they charge went up. Wow, there's a shocker. So here's the news. Revenue was flat, 9.4 billion versus the estimate of 932. That's still below, but it's flat to what they wanted. In earnings per share, 0.69 cents was a drop from a quarter a year ago, but higher than they expected. So basically setting expectations for these stocks. If you remember, they changed CEOs, and I'm going to show you the graph or the chart, and you can see when the new CEO came in because the stock went up quite a bit. Same store sales down 4%, foot traffic down 6%, but the actual ticket or price went up 3%. And one thing I noticed down in here too, and I think this is important, we're going to see this across other companies, is they pulled back on their promotions, 40% fewer discounted transactions. Now, I know when I went through, boy, I must have missed out on these discounted transactions because I was paying full freight, but they're going to pull back on that. So I don't know if we'll see that in other, across other industries, or certainly in this kind of consumer food and beverage industry, but I thought that was important. And then we've seen this with McDonald's already, simplification. I mean, remember when McDonald's used to sell a salad and they used to sell some things that they thought were healthy? Well, those are all gone. So Starbucks going to cut back on their food offerings by 30%. And, when I've went in Starbucks, it's always been for coffee for the kids, but, I see a lot of other things for sale. I never bought it, but that makes sense that they're going to cut back. So overall, so let me show you what happened with the stock so far this morning. It is up 5%, which is pretty good. And what I'm showing you here is a 1-year graph. So this 1-year graph is, I'll summarize it. A big dip, bad earnings, and it kind of stagnated down there in that 75. And then this big surge, this is when they stole the CEO. They stole Brian Nicole from Chipotle, and they got a big surge out of that. So, hey, smart move. They pay the guy, probably $100 million, and their stock goes up, a lot, $1 billion or something. So that's a good return for the shareholders. And you can see kind of stagnant, even down a little bit after the election. And then just this year, it's up. Now, is this something that we want to start including in our more of our models? We'll determine that. High profit item. I mean, I don't know how much the materials could possibly cost on a $5 cup of coffee. I think I saw 15% of it is the cost, or I mean, it is low. So it's all really, labor and, promotions and marketing, but, coffee is high profit. So anyways, we'll see where this goes and continue to monitor. But hey, I like it. I like that it's up, and I like that this company is doing better. And I think Brian Nicole is, they're making some smart decisions here. And one thing they got to figure out is how to cut the line, because I've sat in line where there's 10 cars ahead of me, and I'm like, you guys are printing money and you're going to make me wait for it? Come on. Go ahead, Corey.
I was just going to say, yeah, and a little more kind of broader implication. Anytime these consumer discretionary companies are doing well and growing in stock price and in the real world, that's a really good sign for the broader stock market, right? Because these are a little bit more discretionary purchases, and even though not everyone would view it that totally as a discretionary purchase, but that consumer discretionary sector, when it's doing well, the stock market's typically doing very well.
Yep. Okay, so now we talked about coffee, which is high profit margin, even though the price of cocoa has went up quite a bit this year. Now we're going to talk about what's low profit margin with lots of competitors, which we love to talk about every once in a while. So I saw this in the news. I knew Spirit had went into bankruptcy. I know there was a proposed merger 3 years ago that got kind of blown up by JetBlue and the government, and they said, we're going to create not a monopoly, but it's going to reduce competitiveness. Spirit went bankrupt. So, come on, they're going bankrupt. Let them merge with somebody. So Frontier comes in again. What better time to buy a company when they're bankrupt, right? Other than you have your debt that, who knows how much debt they have that would need to be wiped away, but they got their big yellow planes. If you've flown Spirit, I've flown them before. Generally, they're crowded. I mean, the price of their tickets is low. These two airlines operate the same way. I flew Frontier just a few weeks ago. They nickel and dime you on every single thing. Same kind of model. They're going to get you on everything. Even a carry-on bag, they're going to charge you for, and they charge more than, like, say, an American or a Delta. So here it is, proposing a merger again. We'll see. I don't know why the government wouldn't allow this, because, I mean, they're in bankruptcy. So
Hey, Mike,
Yep, go ahead.
On this, it's so funny. This is like perfect example here. The expectation is that under a new administration, we're going to see a lot more activity in this space, mergers, acquisitions, and things like that. The expectation is very little pushback from the government on approval and things like that. And it's funny that this exact transaction here is the one that didn't make it through a year or whenever ago, right?
Yeah.
So it's like not only are we going to expect new ones, but maybe the same ones that have been rejected are going to come right back.
I just don't understand why it would be rejected in a sense, because, JetBlue tried to acquire them last year, got blocked by the government, and, and Spirit said, okay, we're going bankrupt. And they wiped out, that wipes out all the stockholders, and then they have to, pay down, pennies on the debt, pennies on the dollar for the debt. And it's like, why would they block? Why did they block it last year? And certainly, why would they block it this year? I will tell you that when I see things like this, it changes my travel strategy. If in the past where I might have flown Spirit, I know they're in bankruptcy. Like I had, choices to take a different airline, and I chose it because I'm like, I'm not gonna book a trip with an airline in bankruptcy. They could shut down next week, and so anyways, it hurts their business all the further. So anyways, I just thought it was interesting. I will turn it over to Corey, and he'll talk about ASML. Now, here I'm going to tell you what that stands for. So here's the, I don't know. I should have came up with some multiple choice to have you guess what it stands for. But it stands for. If you got this right, you need to post a reply and say I knew this. Advanced Semiconductor Materials Lithography. And they say it no longer stands for anything, just so you know. They say, but originally that was an abbreviation. I'm gonna be honest, Corey. I like this company, but change your name to something that means something. Don't. I mean, ASML. I think for the, if you're going to be a long-term company, a Palantir, you gotta have a name. You can't just be ASML. I mean, come on,
At
come
least
up with.
switch it to ASLM because
Yeah,
they're the ones behind all the language models in a way.
there you go. Or, put it in Chat GPT and say, this is our business. Give me some ideas and come up with a name, because it's hard to really, you feel like you're buying a mutual fund or, an ETF. I don't even know what it feels like you're buying here. So anyways, I like the company. I hate the name. It's like, come on, come up with a real name. Okay, I'll turn it over to you, Corey.
Yeah, you'd think with the advanced products they and devices that they make, they could at least come up with a name, right? They're doing all the hard stuff.
I was gonna say it's
Just a
a
little
bunch of
review. So,
engineers, probably a bunch of
I'm
engineers
sorry.
and not a, it's a lot of engineers and not a lot of English majors.
I guess so. You're probably right. They're worried about more important stuff. So earlier this week, we did see that threat come out of China, DeepSeek. There's been more come out about that. Some of the training strategies were probably taking information directly from the American models that already existed. There was some innovation on top of that, but there's also a lot of speculation that there were some chips, many chips, illegally potentially acquired by China through Singapore or through other means. So maybe some of their $6 million investment from old NVIDIA chips wasn't the full and total truth, but we don't know for sure. Now, what we do know is ASML has heard nothing from their customers. They have heard nothing, and the stock is rebounding from that scare
Kind
earlier
of
this
tell
week.
kind of tell everybody what they do, because I think it's a little different.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through that. I'm gonna
Okay.
really quick though. So, and yeah, actually, let's jump to that. So ASML, what they do is they make these machines, these lithography machines, and these machines cost whatever ASML wants them to cost. I think their new generation is for this, it looks like a storage box size device. It costs 400 and something $1 million per machine at this point. ASML has no competitors, so they are as pure a global monopoly as you'd find. They're the largest company in the Netherlands, and these machines are used to make every NVIDIA chip that people want so badly, every AMD chip, Taiwan Semiconductor, Intel, any company producing these chips has to buy, and they have to pay ASML whatever ASML wants them to pay to get access to these machines. Could I build a machine like this? There's no way. Some Legos maybe, but nothing along this line. So let's go to their earnings. So the fear was there was something weird last quarter where ASML had great earnings last quarter because, again, they just named their price. It's a pure global monopoly. And as far as competitors go, there's really no one trying. There is a couple research papers on what a competitor could try, but no one investing the money to try. So they have a monopoly on this. But for whatever reason, in the last quarter, they have these large bookings of future demand, just like you can always hear about with a Boeing and things like that. And for whatever reason, in the last quarter, they just didn't get as many calls as normal for further demand. So there was nothing bad, but the earnings were amazing, but they just didn't get a large additional boost in bookings. Well, that all changed this quarter. So bookings came in at 7.09 billion euros, up 169% from that prior quarter. So, the fear, the concern was, oh, bookings might be slowing. People just didn't make a call in those couple of months, and they called extra this quarter. The level of concern there is very small. I think they had all-time high free cash flow, and again, we see that the stock is being rewarded for that. So, high quality company. This is the backbone of the whole chip complex. If you want an advanced chip, you've got to use an ASML machine, and that's it.
All
So
right.
anyway, Mike, back to you. But healthy. Here's last thing I'll say. This whole week, and after we're going to see more after hours today. On these conference calls, they're going to be asking about DeepSeek. What does it mean? What does it mean for demand? Is it really a threat? Is it really a problem? ASML was the first view we have into that dynamic. And what did they say? We see and have heard nothing changing from our customers.
Interesting people. There's always news to talk about, always, and obviously things, our job is to stay on top of this every day. So hopefully all of you don't have to stay in all these details and conference calls and all this. So in the long term, a company like ASML has a very important product with a huge moat for other companies to enter that competitive space. Certainly I like, you don't like the word monopoly. That's, bad in a sense to hear monopoly. We like to see a couple competitors because they keep each other honest. So definitely a stock that we'll be looking at going forward. Thanks everybody for hopping on. We'll talk to you later. I think tomorrow we'll have Tesla earnings, I think, if I remember correctly. So, but exciting earnings coming out the rest of this week. Have a good one. Bye.